Back on the Chad AC Show, News Talk 790 KFYO, talking about the OU fraternity and freedom of speech. What can you say? What can you not say? And where does freedom of speech kick in? When does it stop? When do you no longer have freedom of speech? These are all questions OU's kicking around right now. An OSU media law professor disagreed with the two attorneys. Weighing in is Joey Sanat, saying, quote, OU cannot punish those students for their speech, said Sanat, who has dealt for years with First Amendment issues. Even unpopular, hateful speech is protected by the First Amendment. It would be more outrageous for OU to punish them for comments made off campus. I would agree with that. If Borden kicks them out of school, he's probably facing a lawsuit. I would agree with that. I don't know if he would win or lose a lawsuit, but I agree he'd probably be facing a lawsuit. So that said, many colleges have speech codes, but federal courts have constantly struck them down as violating the First Amendment. Quote, there can be a speech code on the books. That doesn't mean it's enforceable. There's a difference between speech and behavior. If I punch someone, that's behavior. Saying something that someone doesn't like, that is speech. And then the article from the Tulsa World gets into, well, can these students face criminal charges now? Now, this is where I totally disagree with the article and with some of these attorneys here who say that, well, you look at under the civil rights law, it's possible that there could be action taken against the students, and just stop it. The students were being stupid. Yes, what they said was wrong, but are they violating civil rights? Are they hurting anyone? No, just quit it. Borden said his legal staff looking into the matter, quote, under the civil rights law, it may be possible for us to take action against certain individuals we are examining. If we will be able to take any additional action against students, evidence has to be collected. That process, to stand constitutional muster, must be carefully directed. So we're conducting an investigation. Even the White House weighed in on this, which is just silly for the White House to weigh in on what happened at OU. But of course, if it's a racial issue, then President Obama in the White House and Eric Holder, they've all got to weigh in on this. It's racial, white people saying racial stuff. We got to talk about it. Again, freedom of speech. You all have freedom of speech. That doesn't mean there aren't consequences to it. Now you go back, what was her name? Natalie Maines. Man, that was years ago. When she was overseas and she slammed the United States. Slammed President Bush, slammed the U.S. government. And there were radio stations that stopped playing was it Dixie Chicks? Yeah, the Dixie Chicks. They stopped playing the Dixie Chicks on radio. And there were people saying, it's her First Amendment. Yes, no one arrested her. No one threw the Dixie Chicks in jail. But there are consequences to what you have to say. The First Amendment doesn't mean you just get to go right now. Saying that these students possibly violated civil rights and that they should be arrested, okay, now we're going a bit too far. Now we're going a bit too far here. Can OU throw the students out off campus? I think they probably can. Should they? No. It would not surprise me if they were to throw maybe the ringleader off campus for violating some code of conduct. But then again, I would also agree with the Oklahoma State professor. If it happened off campus, I don't really know if you can take action. And again, that's another slippery slope. Do you really want to go down? If you've got someone who goes to Texas Tech and they're on a family vacation somewhere and they're, dropping the F-bomb and, they They maybe accidentally say something they shouldn't on video, and it's posted on Facebook or on Twitter. Should Texas Tech throw them off campus? No. I think the OU president feeling a little bit of pressure from some certain areas. And whenever that happens, usually you go a little bit too far. And so if they do throw the students off campus, it would not surprise me if there's a big lawsuit against Oklahoma. Now, for all the people protesting on the OU campus, why? Do we just like to protest now? I heard members of the football team, the OU football team, left practice to go and protest. Why? It's not like the OU president went out and said, we agree with the members of SAE. We agree with them. We're fine with whatever they said. No. They shut them down. And still there are people protesting and people who are upset. I think OU took the appropriate action. I don't think it should go any further, though. 770-5790 toll free, 1-800-687-0790 if you want to weigh in on this whole OU issue and free speech issue. It is something that we could honestly talk about just about every single day. We really could. What are you allowed to say? What are you not allowed to say anymore? You have to remember, in many of these cases, the police aren't arresting you. You can be fired now for things that you send out on Twitter. Should you be? If Jody has his own private Twitter account and he gets in a discussion, a heated argument, and he starts dropping the F-bomb and a few other bombs as well, and somebody with this business, a town square, if they get mad, should he be fired? I personally say no. I think that a lot of businesses go way too far in firing employees because of what they say on Facebook or what they say on Twitter. Especially when we get into territories where they're complaining about politics, or they're disagreeing with Hillary Clinton, or if they are disagreeing with gay marriage on Twitter and they're fired because of that. But remember, with freedom of speech, there are consequences. You had, who was it, CEO of Firefox, who had to leave his job because he had donated money to anti-gay marriage causes. He had to leave. He had to go because the mob went after him. And the stakeholders said, okay, you've got to go now. And so I think we go a little bit too far, but that is not, I don't blame the whole freedom of speech deal. I blame people for being too easily offended now. And this mob mentality that we have to go through and ruin everybody's life and their livelihood because of what they believe about certain politicians or about certain causes or religious beliefs. We get way too offended as a society. Now, this OU deal, yeah, get rid of the frat. The fraternity members, I don't know if they were drunk. I don't know if they were sober. Do I think that they really hate black people? Again, I don't. As a chapter, no. Do a few individuals really hate black people? Possibly. But I don't know any of them. Could they have just been doing stupid kid stuff? Yeah, they could have been. They could have been really immature and really stupid. Does that mean their lives should be ruined by them being thrown out of the university? No. Should they be in jail because of what they said? No. But it would not surprise me if at least one or two of these fraternity members were thrown off campus. Because the mob mentality, and now that the White House has commented on it, the mob mentality will dictate to the OU president, you've got to do something else. You've got to do more. You have to show that racism will not be accepted. Even though I think the OU president made a pretty strong statement about how racism not accepted at OU. But the mob mentality will force the OU president to go further. And that's what's wrong. These students made a mistake. At the end of the day, did they hurt anybody? No. Did they hurt feelings? Yes. But they did not hurt anybody physically. They did not prevent anybody from getting an education or succeeding in life. So I don't think you throw them in jail. I don't think you throw them off campus. But I think the mob mentality will force the OU president to at least expel one or two members. Would not surprise me. All right, back on the Chat AC Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. A few emails that have come in on this issue. This from Andrew. Hey, Chad, so the OU guys may be facing criminal charges for saying the same words that my students say 100 times a day? Stupid is stupid, but it's not criminal yet. Yes, but see, this is when you wade into the murky waters of what's in your heart. This is when you get into hate speech and hate crimes. What's in your heart? Now, see, if the white members of the fraternity would have just dropped the N-bomb with an A at the end, maybe it would have been accepted. But remember, they also talked about lynching and not allowing any, blanks into the fraternity. That's where they got in a little bit of trouble. That's where they got into some trouble. The whole lynching part, that probably threw it over the top there. Another email that came in dealing with this freedom of speech, this from Valerie. Yes, you have the freedom to yell fire in a crowded movie theater, but also the consequences of that freedom. It's against the law. Just a thought, yeah. Again, there are consequences to what you have to say. Now, when you get into hate speech, again, if this was a black fraternity dropping the N-word, nobody would be saying a word today. Nobody would be saying a word. Hell, even if they would have said, if it was a black fraternity singing about not allowing the crackers into the fraternity, no one would be saying a word about the fraternity today. But again, you have a white fraternity, or I guess overall white fraternity. I don't know if they had any Hispanics or Asian members. Wouldn't it be something if they did have a black member of the fraternity we find out in a day? Wouldn't that be something? That, they were just kind of singing a song that he wrote, and, oops, sorry, everyone go about your business. I don't think that actually happened, but that'd be something. Again, once you involve the lynching and saying a blank will never be allowed in the group, yeah, that's where university officials usually have a problem.